All right, so we're diving into The Alchemist today by Paulo Coelho.
Yeah.
Have you read this one before?
Oh, yeah. I love this book.
Yeah.
It's a
Good one.
really powerful story, I think.
All right, so for our listeners who haven't read it, it's the story of this shepherd boy named Santiago.
Right.
And he keeps having this dream about treasure buried by the pyramids.
Yeah.
And he decides to go for it.
Yeah, he does. He decides to follow his
He
dream.
leaves his sheep behind.
Yeah. You know, I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of wanting to break free from the familiar and pursue something more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what is my purpose? What am I doing here?
Yeah, exactly. It's like that deep-seated yearning we all have for something more than just the everyday routine.
Yeah, totally. And Coelho calls this the personal legend.
Right, the personal legend, exactly. Yeah. It's that unique purpose that's kind of like woven into the fabric of who we are.
Okay, so it's not necessarily about like a specific job or being rich and famous.
No, not at all. It's much more about aligning with your soul's purpose. You know, what makes you feel truly alive.
Right, like what gets you out of bed in the morning.
Exactly. It's about finding that thing that sets your soul on fire.
I love that. Okay, so Santiago sets off on this adventure to find his personal legend.
Right.
But he faces a lot of obstacles along the way.
Oh, absolutely. He encounters setbacks, doubts, and even moments where he wants to give up and go back to his sheep.
Yeah, like when he gets robbed in Tangier.
Yeah, that was a tough one. He loses all his money, feels completely lost and defeated.
Right. But that experience actually leads him to the crystal merchant, who ends up playing a pivotal role in his journey.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting how those seemingly negative experiences can actually push us in the right direction sometimes.
Right. Like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Exactly. Or, as Coelho might say, it's all part of the personal legend unfolding.
I love that. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other key characters. So we've got Santiago. We have the crystal merchant.
Right.
What about that mysterious old king, Melchizedek? He's the one who kind of sets Santiago on this path in the first place.
Right. Melchizedek. He's like this wise sage who appears at just the right moment to nudge Santiago out of his comfort zone.
Yeah. He gives him those two stones, Urim and Thummim, to help him read the omens.
Yeah, he's all about following those signs and trusting your intuition.
Omens. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's another big theme in the book.
Oh, absolutely. It's about recognizing those synchronicities, those little nudges from the universe that are guiding us along the way.
So it's like the personal legend is the destination. And the omens are like the signposts along the way.
Yeah, exactly. They're like those breadcrumbs leading us towards our destiny.
Okay, so we've got personal legend.
Yeah.
We've got omens. Now, what about the crystal merchant? I mean, he's got this dream of going to Mecca, right?
Yeah, he does.
But he's too scared to actually go.
He's afraid to leave his comfort zone, his routine.
So he just stays in his crystal shop.
Yeah, year after year.
What do you think Coelho's trying to say with this character?
I think he's highlighting the dangers of playing it safe, of letting fear paralyze us and prevent us from pursuing our dreams.
Right. Like, is it better to have tried and failed than to never have tried at all?
Exactly. It's about recognizing those crystal shops in our own lives.
Okay, those things that are holding us back.
Yeah, the places where we've settled for comfort over fulfillment.
Right, I like that. Okay, so we have Santiago, who's driven by his personal legend. We have the crystal merchant who's stuck in his comfort zone.
Right.
And then there's Fatima, the woman Santiago meets and falls in love with in the oasis.
Right, Fatima.
She's not just a love interest, though, right?
No, not at all. She represents a love that supports and encourages the pursuit of one's personal legend.
It's like she understands that Santiago needs to fulfill his destiny.
Yeah, and she's not afraid to let him go for it.
Which is a pretty powerful message in itself, right?
Absolutely. It's a love that's based on freedom and trust, rather than possession or neediness.
Right. It's like she's saying, go chase your dreams, and I'll be here when you return.
Exactly. And that kind of love is incredibly empowering, both for the individual pursuing their dreams and for the relationship itself.
I love that. Okay, so we've got Santiago, the crystal merchant, and Fatima. And, of course, there's one more character we can't forget, the alchemist himself.
Ah, the alchemist, the embodiment of wisdom and spiritual guidance.
We're going to have to save him for part 2 of our deep dive.
Right, he deserves his own segment for sure.
But I'm already so intrigued by this whole language of the world he talks about.
It's a fascinating concept, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's like, what if everything in the universe is speaking to us and we just don't know how to listen?
Exactly. And the alchemist seems to hold the key to unlocking that secret language.
Well, we'll have to tune in next time to find out more.
So last time we left off talking about the alchemist, right? And that whole concept of the language of the world.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is that? How do we learn to speak it? Can I get like a Rosetta Stone for that? Yeah.
Haha. Well, it's not a language in the traditional sense, with words and grammar.
Okay.
It's more about recognizing the interconnectedness of everything.
Okay.
It's like sensing the energy that flows through the universe and understanding that everything has a story to tell, a lesson to teach.
Okay, so it's less about like decoding hieroglyphics.
Right.
And more about like tuning into a different frequency.
Yeah, exactly. It's about opening yourself up to the subtle messages and signs that are all around us all the time.
That makes me think about those moments when you're like really immersed in nature and you feel this sense of peace and connection.
Right, like you're part of something much bigger than yourself.
Yeah. Is that like a glimpse of the language of the world?
It very well could be. You know those moments of awe and wonder when you feel a sense of oneness with everything? Those are like invitations to step outside our limited perspectives.
Okay.
And embrace a more expansive view of reality.
I like that. But how do we actually apply this language of the world to our everyday lives?
Well, it starts with paying attention, noticing the patterns in nature,
Right.
the subtle cues in our interactions with others, listening to our own intuition.
So it's about being more present?
Yes. Being more mindful in each moment, even when we're doing mundane things like washing the dishes or stuck in traffic.
Right.
It's about finding those moments of stillness amidst the chaos.
Okay, I can try that. But honestly, sometimes I feel like I'm barely surviving the chaos, let alone finding stillness in it.
I hear you. But even just a few minutes of quiet reflection each day can make a big difference.
All right. I'm willing to give it a shot.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about some of those memorable moments from the book.
Okay.
The scenes that really illustrate these concepts.
Yeah.
There's that part where Santiago's crossing the Sahara Desert and he starts having conversations with the wind and the sun and the desert itself.
Oh, yes. Those passages are pure poetry.
Right. It's like Coelho's painting with words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think those conversations are a way for Santiago to connect with that language of the world, to understand that he's part of something much greater than himself.
So it's like he's literally talking to the soul of the world.
Yeah. The Alchemist says that everything in the universe is interconnected. And if you listen closely enough, you can hear the heartbeat of the world.
Wow. Okay. But let's be real for a second. Do you think people actually talk to the wind and the sun? Or is that just like a literary device?
Well, I think it's open to interpretation.
Yeah.
Some people might see it as a metaphor for connecting with nature.
Right.
Others might believe that there's actually a spiritual dimension to those conversations.
Okay.
But I think the point is that we're all capable of tapping into a deeper level of awareness.
Right. Like maybe there's more to reality than what we can see and touch.
Exactly. And those conversations with nature are a way for Santiago to explore that possibility.
Okay, so we have the language of the world. We have those poetic conversations with nature.
Right.
Now, what about that scene at the pyramids where Santiago thinks he's lost everything?
Oh, that's a heartbreaker. He's dug and dug and dug, and there's no treasure.
Yeah, he's come so far.
Right, and it seems like it was all for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. But then there's that twist. He realizes that the real treasure was within him all along.
Ah, yes. The treasure was the journey itself.
Right.
The transformation he underwent.
Okay, but what does that actually mean?
Well, I think it's about recognizing that the real gold isn't material wealth or external achievements. It's the growth we experience along the way.
Right. It's like the lessons we learn.
Exactly. The challenges we overcome, the wisdom we gain.
Okay, so it's not about the destination, but the journey.
Yeah, but it's even deeper than that, I think.
How so?
It's not just about enjoying the ride.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that the challenges, the setbacks, even the moments of despair, those are all part of what shapes us.
Right. They mold us into who we're meant to be.
Exactly. And ultimately, they lead us to the treasure, which is a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the world.
That's beautiful. Okay, so we've talked about the language of the world. We talked about Santiago's conversations with nature.
Right.
And the importance of embracing challenges.
Yeah.
But there's one more concept I want to touch on before we wrap up. Alchemy.
Ah, alchemy. It's a fascinating subject.
It is. But it can be kind of confusing too.
Yeah, definitely. It has a long history and a lot of symbolism.
So how is Coelho using alchemy metaphorically in The Alchemist?
Well, on one level, it's about the transformation of lead into gold.
Right.
But on a deeper level, it's a metaphor for personal transformation.
Okay.
Just as the alchemist takes something ordinary and transforms it into something extraordinary, we too have the potential to refine ourselves, to shed our limitations,
Right.
and become the best versions of ourselves.
So it's not about literal magic,
Right.
but about that inner alchemy, that process of self-discovery and growth.
Exactly. Think about that scene at the monastery where the alchemist turns lead into gold. It's a visual representation of the potential that lies within each of us.
So we all have that lead inside us.
In a way, yes. Our fears, our doubts, our limiting beliefs.
Right. Those things that hold us back.
Exactly. But through conscious effort, through embracing challenges and learning from our experiences, we can transform those aspects into gold.
Into wisdom, courage, a deeper understanding of our purpose.
Yes. It's about recognizing that we're not fixed entities, but rather works in progress.
We're always evolving.
Exactly. And the gold isn't just a material reward.
Okay.
It's a symbol of the refined self.
The product of our journey.
Exactly. The embodiment of our transformed being.
I love that. So the real treasure is the transformed self.
Yeah. The person we become through the process of pursuing our personal legends.
That's beautiful. Okay, so we've talked about the alchemist and the language of the world, and alchemy is a metaphor for personal transformation.
Right.
Now, there's one more character I want to touch on. The Englishman.
Ah, yes. The English.
He's got a very different approach to pursuing his personal legend, doesn't he?
He does indeed. He's very focused on books and theories.
Right. He's all about intellectual knowledge.
Exactly. And while knowledge is important,
Sure.
I think the book is highlighting that it's not enough.
Okay.
We need to balance our intellectual pursuits with lived experience.
So it's not just about reading the map,
Right.
but about actually taking the journey.
Exactly. Stumbling along the way, making mistakes, learning from our experiences.
Yeah, it reminds me of that quote. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn.
Yes. That's perfect. The Englishman is missing that vital element of surrendering to the journey, trusting his intuition and allowing himself to be transformed by the experience.
So it's about having both head and heart.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the key lessons of The Alchemist. The journey itself is as important as the destination.
It's about who we become along the way.
Exactly. The people we meet, the challenges, we overcome the moments of doubt and despair, those all contribute to our growth and ultimately shape the treasure we discover.
That's a great point. So the Englishman represents that more intellectual approach. And Santiago is more about following his heart and intuition.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
And they both learn from each other.
Right. It's like they're both on their own unique paths, but they intersect and learn valuable lessons from each other.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've covered most of the key characters and themes.
I think so.
But there's one more thing that's been on my mind.
Okay.
The alchemist tells Santiago, wherever your heart is, there you will find your treasure.
Right.
But what happens after you find your treasure?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's something that the book doesn't really address directly.
Right. Like what happens after you achieve your personal legend?
Exactly. Do you just like retire to a beach somewhere?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe, like you said before, it's not really a destination, but a stepping stone.
Right. It could be the beginning of a whole new chapter.
Yeah. Like you've leveled up and now you're ready for a new quest.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Exactly. And maybe that new quest is even more challenging and rewarding than the last one.
So it's like a never-ending journey of growth and discovery.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful way to look at it. Life is about constantly evolving and becoming more of who we're meant to be.
That makes me think about those people who achieve great things in their lives. Like they reach the top of their field or they accomplish some amazing feat.
Right.
And then what? Do they just stop?
I don't think so. I think for a lot of people, it's just the beginning. It fuels them to set even bigger goals and to keep pushing themselves further.
So it's like that quote, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Yeah. And every step along the way is an opportunity to learn and grow and become more of who we're meant to be.
I love that. Okay, so to wrap things up, The Alchemist is a story about following your dreams, facing your fears, and embracing the unknown.
It's about recognizing that the real treasure is the journey itself and the transformed self we become along the way.
And it's a reminder that we all have a personal legend waiting to be discovered. So what are you waiting for? Go out there and find yours.
Exactly. And don't forget to pay attention to the omens along the way.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into The Alchemist.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep following your personal legend.